name is Francoise Bowen. I'm from the beautiful Caribbean island of Antigua and Barbuda. Pronunciation Antigua, not Antigua. Antigua and Barbuda, not Barbuda. Barbuda. Alright, so I'm here with Masonia from Atlanta, Georgia, and she's a global activist on HIV/AIDS. And we're here to have an open, raw discussion. And I have live on Facebook Miss Allison Bramble from Antigua and Barbuda, joining us from ZDK Liberty Radio 97.1 FM. All right, so Masonia is going to introduce herself, and we're going to have the discussion right along. Go ahead.
All right. So my name is Masonia Trailer. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I am 32 years old. I'm a mother of two beautiful children. I have a 15-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter, and I am an HIV/AIDS activist, a community champion, a lover of justice, and I love the work that I do around HIV and AIDS.
Yeah. And one thing about doing this work is that you learn so much also about your health, how to take care of your body, and also how you can help someone else as well too.
Right.
And I've been doing this for over 8 years, and this stemmed from my love of Princess Diana, the late Princess Diana. And every time I watched her as a little girl, I kept thinking to myself, how someone like her can be holding people who have AIDS without gloves. And I was like, I want to be like her. As a little girl, time draw by, then sadly I lost someone that I know to AIDS. And that just like, you know what, I really got to push myself in doing something about the sickness, spreading the message on prevention. And so far, it has been working out. Had the stumbling blocks, just like anything when you're building, you have the stumbling blocks that has happened. But I'm really grateful that throughout the years, I've been able to receive corporate sponsorship with what I'm doing. Like, for example, the Bay House restaurant, who have made this possible for me to have this conversation with you. So whenever you come to Antigua, and any one of you from Atlanta, when you're traveling, come to Antigua and come to the Bay House restaurant. Come and eat our lobster thermidor. Yeah. But something about you, Masonia, I can't remember how we met, but it was through social media we met. And now we finally meet in person.
Yes, it's been some years.
It's been
at the least 5 years.
Yeah.
I think it's been at least 5 years that we've been friends on social media.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I came across the campaign work that you're doing, and I like it. I love it. I would like for it to be here in the U.S. I wish it were stronger here in the U.S. because your messaging is so simplistic, but it hits home. Mm-hmm. I think even stronger than some of the campaigns that we have here in the States.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. And one thing, I'm glad that we have a local nonprofit organization called the AIDS Secretariat. Mr. Cora Williams, she know about the work that I'm doing, and I try my best in my way to help them as well. And kudos to the AIDS Secretary, for years they have been doing this. Yes. I have a question to ask you before I turn over to Allison. Is on your bio, you spoke about you being HIV/AIDS positive, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. How did that happen? Like, did you know after you had your child? Was it before? I mean, give us a kind of background, and also when you found out that you're HIV positive, did it behave like Medea? I mean,
I probably needed to.
but share with us really about that.
Well, one thing I will say is that I have made a conscious decision that if a person doesn't ask me my status, if they're not bold enough to ask me directly, I don't share it.
Okay.
Unless it's a space where I'm expected to. So that's my way of protecting my status and understanding I can separate myself from it because I'm still just a human being that just has a life to live.
Right.
So I've been doing this advocacy work for about 8 years now. It will be 9 years this month that I have been living with HIV.
Wow.
I do use HIV and AIDS interchangeably because I don't want to be offended when people say AIDS, because there are people who have AIDS that are healthier than I am.
Wow.
You know, take the exact same medications as me. But as far as my story on how I contracted HIV is, you know, for a long time, I learned in high school that you can look like you don't have a sickness and get HIV, and then all of a sudden get sick, and then you pass away from complications of it. But I also learned that the only way you will know is to get tested. But I never knew what to do after you get tested. There was never an idea in my mind that once you get tested, something else will, if it comes back negative, what do you do? What do you do when it comes back positive as well? But for me, I was diagnosed HIV positive in 2010. And 2 weeks after my diagnosis, I found out that I was pregnant with my daughter. My son was 7 years old at the time. And so I was definitely in shock. I was traumatized. I was hurt. I was in pain. I was angry. Was very disappointed in myself. I was very disappointed in myself. I felt like initially that I was being punished for not waiting to have sex until I got married. Not too long after my diagnosis, because I was pregnant, I was also working in the pharmacy as a pharmacy technician. So I was already dispensing medications to people living with HIV and AIDS. Even though I didn't know what their life expectancy was, I never wanted to be rude and ask a lot of questions or anything. But I really didn't focus on the virus itself, more so than my pregnancy and working to sustain my household as a mother.
Wow. How can you think of Medea and the guy? No, I'm being real. I mean, why did you get Medea and the guy? Like, I trusted you and you gave this to me, like, basically like a death, person look at it like a death sentence.
Well, so for me, I was in a relationship for about 6 months before I got pregnant. And I was with someone prior to for almost 4 years. When I reached out to the person I had been with for 4 years, my ex, he was not interested in getting tested. He said, "You've always been sick. You always have a problem."
Oh, so you want to know.
Blame. Instead of saying, you know what, thank you for telling me. Now I will go and make sure that I'm okay.
Well, that response alone make me know that you knew all along that you had it.
Yeah, maybe,
that's
but
how I'm reading it.
I still won't know unless you get tested.
Yeah.
I still will never know unless he gets tested. So my daughter's father at the time, he also did not want to go get tested, even once I told him about my status.
Because he was afraid.
I think he was very afraid. He did later tell me that he did get tested and that it came back negative, but I still have my, suspicions because I've now had to make peace with if I got it from one of the two people, somebody has it but just doesn't want to say.
Tell you. Wow. My emotions right now is it's like I want to punch somebody.
Well, so I can say that there was a lot of me blaming myself because along the way I had to understand that no matter how angry I want to be at someone else, what could I have done differently? Even I chose to trust someone else. Right. They didn't make the choice for me to trust them. I made the choice to trust them. So what role did I play to what could I have done differently? Not what could they have done differently. What could I have done differently? Yeah. And I could have made a decision, a stern and firm decision that they will use protection every time. Not 85% of the time, not 98% of the time, every single time. And oftentimes men, they don't want to go get tested. They don't like doctors and hospitals and stuff. And people, not just men, people, they don't like it. But we as women will go. We need to check our health. This is what we're supposed to do, you know? And so I figure if I'm negative and my tests come back negative, then the person I'm with is HIV negative too. And it may not always be the case. That may be God's saving grace.
Right. And after your child was born, positive or negative?
No, my daughter was blessed and she was born HIV negative. It did take a lot of work to get there. Even with trusting medications, because even though I worked in a pharmacy, I didn't believe in taking a lot of medications to, be healthy. I believe in more of natural remedies and whatnot. So it's been a very hard transition in this lifestyle, because it is still a lifestyle to me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Allison?
Hey.
Hi.
How you doing, Masonia?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I'm dying here under the sun. It is definitely hot today. So thank you for being so willing and candid in sharing your story, right, and sharing your life journey. Well, we've got a lot of questions actually, because since I was invited to the discussion, I thought, let me ask some questions that I think some people may want to have the answers to, and you're being so candid, I thought you were the right person to ask these questions.
Okay.
And so I'm going to start. Let's start, all right? So, what have you seen as a loss due to your health diagnosis? And I mean in general, in any aspect of what have you seen as a loss? Friendships, relationships, opportunity, what? What have you seen as a loss?
What have I seen as a loss? This is the first time I've ever been asked that question. The biggest thing that I think I've seen as a loss for me has not been friendships, it has not been relationships with others, but a sense of self. I lost a lot of myself. I was only 23 years old when I got diagnosed. So I was 23 with a 6-7-year-old child, trying to finish my college, my undergraduate degree in college. And I had these goals and dreams that did not have HIV in the mix. It did not have something that's going to impact my health in the long run until I got old, until I was maybe in my late 50s or 60s when I have grandkids and whatnot. Like, it was not something that I would consider, but I definitely had a loss of self. Dreams, goals, aspirations, ambition. I punished myself a lot.
So which means that you're basically low self-esteem.
Yeah, my self-esteem, my spirits
just went.
My spirits were very low. Like, I didn't have the same confidence because I had so much fear.
Yeah.
And I had so much anger that I wasn't able to, feel very happy about, what my next thing is going to be, because now I just have to survive instead of just live.
Yeah.
So, moving on from there, then, what are some of your best character traits? It's changed you. You say you found that there was a loss in yourself, but in that loss, you must have gained. So, what are some of the best character traits? How do you see yourself now? Do you see yourself, how different are you from the young woman that was 23 years old?
How different am I from the woman that was 23 years old? That's 10 years ago. It's almost 10 years ago. I got a couple months and I'll be 33. I've gained a lot. I've gained a heavier appreciation in life. I've always appreciated the small things in life. So being appreciative that I am already compassionate, that I am already loving, I am already forgiving. I did gain more forgiveness to give to others.
Wow.
A quicker level of forgiveness. I challenge myself around my mental health to forgive myself even more, to be more gentle about life and how I treat and care for myself, because people deserve not to be judged. And so I gained learning not to judge myself very hard, because no one can judge you harder than you judge yourself.
Yeah.
Nobody can do that. So I learned a lot of healing life lessons around strengthening my spirituality. I've gained a whole lot of wisdom. I've gained even more wisdom than I had before, when people told me, you're so mature for your age, you know. But gained a lot of wisdom. I gained a stronger appreciation for motherhood, community, and compassion. Compassion for people of all walks of life, because even just talking about HIV with people who have cancer, it's like they look at me like, oh my God, but you have HIV. I have cancer, but you have HIV. Like, HIV is almost worse. You know, that some people can look at it like that. And then,
I mean, you saying that, right? And I just remembered Dr. Prince Ramsey, one of Antigua's leading doctors, but he just recently passed away from cancer. And listening to the reaction from persons that you said spoke with about cancer, and they're like, oh, HIV. Something that Dr. Ramsey said that up to now still triggers. He said he wished he had the HIV than cancer.
So even though people look at HIV, because HIV is it's contagious. It is something that you can get from someone else. So there's a fear there around that. Unlike cancer, we have a underlying understanding that you can't get it from, you know, being sexually active with someone if they have cancer. But there's this higher level of stigma associated, like this mark of disgrace associated with HIV and AIDS, because of its history and because of its understanding that you can get it from someone else.
But it's also controllable.
It is. So
whereas cancer, it's not controllable.
Right. So HIV is much more manageable than cancer can be. But what's funny or interesting is that the first medication that was available to treat HIV was initially created to treat cancer. Wow. So that's how potent the medications are. You know, they're very potent, but I think that the way that society addresses HIV and AIDS and, you know, sex and sexuality is part of the issue around why the stigma is so much higher. You receive much more compassion if you have cancer than you do when you have HIV or AIDS.
That I realize. I have to call the other sicknesses, I call them the name brand sicknesses. And the reason why I call them the name brand sicknesses, because everybody's more sympathetic.
Yes.
More sympathetic to someone who have HIV AIDS. And I'm thinking, everybody have sex. Whether it's one time, many times, or whatever. Sex is played in rituals. Sex is played in pleasurable. Sex is played in this. Sex is played in that. So in any which way you're having sex for whatever purpose, just that one time, being unprotected, you can get it. Right. So I keep thinking that person should not just be one-sided about other sicknesses, but they should also embrace and say, hey, anybody, one thing HIV doesn't care if you're white, black, mulatto, doesn't care if you're broke, negative broke, medium class, high class, whatever class. Once it gets you, it gets you. That's it. Once you have unprotected sex, that's it.
May he rest in peace.
Oh yeah.
I understand why he may have preferred HIV or AIDS over cancer, because at least there is a heightened sense of hope. You know, there's some because you know there's a heightened sense of certainty. You know, and I think that us living with HIV and AIDS, the stigma behind it, you know, is what really does hurt us most. That's what kills us, because you have this social side of it, and then you have the mental side of it. And mentally, it can make you feel very low. where it affects you socially. And you don't receive the compassion, the sympathy, and the love in the same way because you get more rejection than you do get acceptance.
Oh, and one of the things that Dr. Sir Prince Ramsey was pushing, because he was the first person in Antigua and Barbuda and also in the Caribbean that has been pushing on safe sex, on HIV/AIDS, because there was one person who got infected with it through blood transfusion. At that time, that was back in the 80s, 70s, nobody knew about it to that level. So when the person, got in it was an accident, got the blood transfusion, needed blood, blah, blah, blah. And then this is what happened. And from then on, Dr. Sir Prince Ramsey has been pushing it for years after years, right down until he passed away. Because even up at that time when he was in the hospital, he was still talking, he was still sending messages, he was still this, still that.
Do you think your diagnosis has affected your children?
Absolutely. I absolutely think that my diagnosis has impacted my children, but I think it has impacted them in a way where in my household, HIV and AIDS are not words to fear. If they are words, they are acronyms to be embraced. So it is a norm in my house. There's a sense of normalcy in my house when we talk about HIV and AIDS. It is something that I wanted them to have confidence and courage about. So if I was going to selfishly be public about my status, because anytime you choose to be public about anything dealing with your health, it inadvertently impacts anyone that's connected to you. Right. So I know that negativity will come with me being open about my diagnosis. So my children will have to deal with that as well, where people will automatically assume that they have HIV or AIDS, but I want them to not be offended by that.
Okay.
I want them to use that as fuel to the fire for empowerment. One, empowering themselves to make sure that they do whatever it takes to stay HIV negative, so that this is not something that's generational in our family. Okay. This is where it stops. Yeah. It stops with mommy. And when they have kids and I have grandchildren, it stops with our grandmother, because I don't want my grandkids to contract HIV or AIDS. Yeah. I don't think that it's shameful to, because life happens. Yeah. But I don't want it to be something that we have to work through as something that can be perceived or felt as a burden all over again. So for my children, they have experienced stigma, but I've taught them how to manage and deal with it. It will never go away. It will always be something that they're connected to because of my choice of helping others and being so involved. And they're very proud of it. They're not ashamed in any form or fashion. They look at it as something to be celebrated. And I love them for that. Oh. Yeah. Oh. So they're even more compassionate about other things outside of HIV because of what I've shown and taught them and incorporated in their lives around HIV and AIDS. They know that if someone has a disability or if someone has a mental health challenge, that they are still very compassionate towards those individuals too. Okay. So, thank you for that question. Ooh. Ooh.
I want to hear this too. Spill the tea, spill the tea, spill the tea.
Was I prepared for that one? Of course not. But you had a burning desire to ask that question, right? Okay, so clearly I'm blushing. So my love life is beautiful. It is filled with lots and lots and lots of love.
Am I reading between the line of lots of love? Go ahead.
Yes, lots of yes, so I'm in a relationship. I look forward to getting married. And we look forward to getting married, and I look forward to using that as something to empower others to not feel that just because you have HIV or AIDS that you don't deserve love. And my boyfriend is HIV negative. So he has to learn how to manage and deal with the stigma of others, because he has his own way of wanting to protect himself and to protect me, because dealing with other people's judgment is not easy, you know, to respond to it in a healthy way, especially when they're being like mean or condescending or trying to belittle a situation that's filled with love and God. People like to try to tear that down. And so he has to learn from me with how I choose to respond to it. So then I have to put my big girl panties on and try to be as mature and loving as possible. Even when I get angry, I have to quickly pull myself back together and say, this is not who you are, and this is not how we're going to deal with this.
When you are getting married, come down to Antigua. Marry on the beach at Darkwood Beach. It's the different hues of the blue. Allison, let her know, please. Let her know. Darkwood Beach, you can marry on the sand.
We gotta figure out how we're gonna get all the family there, you know. Maybe the honeymoon.
Oh, the honeymoon. Whichever one, all inclusive.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We do all of that. It's lovely, lovely.
Would you do anything different?
No. I wouldn't do anything differently because I wouldn't be able to have the different lenses, the different perspectives that I have to be able to relate to so many people on different levels. Like I'm a teenage mother. You know, I was a teenage mother. I was 16 when I had my son, but I was 17 when I graduated high school.
Right.
So I was a senior in high school when I had my son, and I finished school early. You know, a lot of people thought I quit, and I was like, no, I'm done. You still got classes? Why? You still got classes all day? I'm at home chilling.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't change anything. And I've thought about it, you know, as far as making peace with like things that I thought I regretted.
Yeah.
You know, if I would have changed anything, maybe, you know, when I had kids. You know, I see the difference in when you're young raising kids, no matter how mature you are. When you're young raising kids versus when you're older, you do have a whole lot more patience when you're older.
Yes.
And you can find a little more stability in loving and finding yourself and being grounded in who you are. So you don't have as many trials to go through with the children. So my son has had to go through everything with me, and I've had to apologize to him and let him know that, you know, this is the part of life where we're both learning the same thing in life, right? Yeah. So that part, yes. But as far as my lived experience and the timing, when I had it, the people I've met, the places I've been, where I am today, I wouldn't take that back for anything. I am a recent survivor of a massive heart attack. So I even now have a deeper appreciation for who I am and why I'm still here. So if I changed anything, I don't think I would be able to help as many people as I've been able to in different areas of their lives outside of HIV and AIDS, because it's my own lived experiences that get me to there, and the times that I've been able to share with people who poured into me to help those other people.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Alison, I don't know if you have this question. I'm gonna ask her. How was it when you told your family? What was their reaction? And what is it today? So back then to now, what was it then, and then what is it now?
Okay, so I can say now first. My family is very proud. They're very proud of me. They take pride in knowing that they can speak it.
Okay.
It's taken some time for some family members, but they can speak it, and they can speak it strongly and say, I have this person that I love that has HIV, and you should not treat them this way. Yeah. I have this person living with HIV, and she's doing this work right here and this way, so you can get up and still push yourself as well. Yeah. In the beginning, I was terrified of telling anybody. anybody. I was terrified because I am, even though I'm younger as far as like, you know, of course my mother and her siblings and my father and his siblings, I'm the one that cooks. So I'm like, okay,
So
when the
I
holidays
can
come around,
imagine then how they were.
are they going to
like,
eat my food anymore if I tell them? Are they going to, you know, act funny with me? Or like, I didn't know. I was scared, but I don't like being afraid.
Yeah.
I don't like fear. So in the beginning, when I made a decision to go public with my status, I did keep in mind that it was a selfish decision and that it would impact my family. So I wanted to prepare them for it in a way. So I contacted them individually and I said, hey, you know, I didn't make it about myself per se, but I contacted them. I let them know, you know, I have HIV. I'm going to go public about my status. But when's the last time you've been tested?
Ooh,
I would ask.
I like that. I like that angle. I like that
I would ask
angle.
my uncles. I would ask my aunts. I would ask my grandparents. My grandparents was appalled, and I was like, "Okay, so what? You might be this age. I don't know if you're having sex or if you did drugs back when or whatever. Do you know your status? Like, I don't want to lose you to it, and we don't have to. You know, you can have a little extra time put on your life by not having HIV or AIDS. So, do you have it? Like, are you getting tested?
Yeah.
So that, you know, that conjures some more like accountability for my family, because you would be a hypocrite to speak on my status and be proud of it but not take care of yourself.
Wow.
So it instilled in them a sense of accountability, you know, for themselves. My mother, her reaction was very, very loving, but I'm not going to say but, however, she explained to me that, okay, cancer, I don't know how I would be able to deal with that. HIV, I know somebody with it. I don't know how it works, but they're okay, so I know you're going to be okay.
Okay.
You see
Wow,
that it was the
yeah.
sense of like, okay, confirmation that you can have more time here with us. And she said, as long as I was okay, I'm an only child by my mother. I do have a sister on my father's side. Okay. She said that as long as you're okay, I'm okay because I'm oblivious to it. If you're sick, then I'm sick. If you're okay, I'm okay. Yeah, I can only go by what I see.
I like that because we have persons that when they tell their family member that they have it, it's like hell. When I say it's hell, like hell break loose. And it's like no. I mean, this is the time that you want to show that extra compassion.
I've learned that when people respond that way, it's because they're afraid for themselves. They're not afraid of that person. So my family has been very supportive. They have embraced it. I think that it is because of how I'm choosing to deal with it. And even though I'm very public about my status, my friends and my family are still very overprotective about it. So even though I'm in a stronger place to deal with my own HIV status, everyone else around me isn't ready for that yet. You know, not everybody is there to deal with the backlash. If somebody says something negative, they don't have the patience or a strong tongue to hold. They would just be like,
how many license?
No license at all on the tongue. No. And they're like, okay, we need to, I need you to shut your mouth because you don't know what you're talking about. You're making me angry right now. You know, you're pissing me off. I'm going to need you not to talk like, because I got somebody I love and care about, and you're talking negative about them, and they don't deserve that. And that's just one person they could be talking about, which is just me, but they don't know how many other people around them that are impacted.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So thank you for that question.
Leading now to something about what you do, right? To spread the message, to share awareness, to share information. So what details do you share in the efforts to reduce HIV and AIDS and the effective numbers, in reduction of the numbers? What do you do in your campaign or mission, or what do you do?
So within my personal mission, I've committed myself to understanding that this happens to be a very strong cultural, social justice problem in our community. And so for me, I participate in campaigns that spread a message of this can happen to anyone, but it doesn't have to. We can control and manage what's happening around the sexually transmitted diseases and infections in our community. If we take a stand and really strengthen our values within our culture, then we can really get not only HIV and AIDS, but other STIs and STDs under control. But we have to really look at it as something that's sacred, and we have to respect one another and be willing to protect each other, because I feel like the person that exposed me to HIV and AIDS was someone who wasn't willing to protect me.
Yeah.
You know, like by protecting yourself, you automatically protect others. You didn't protect me. Just as a man in this community, you're supposed to protect me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And because I have this love for you, in return, I'm supposed to protect you.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing with my daughter. You know, we don't talk about perinatal transmission very much around HIV as we should, because some people say, well, only one baby was born last year with HIV. Why? How?
Yeah.
And why is it okay to say only one? One is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Because one impacts many. What if that one gets older and is angry at the world and decides, well,
I am glad you said that.
So I'm going to
I'm glad you
more.
said that, because
it only takes one.
I'm glad you said that, because then there are actually people who actually go and mean that they are infecting people with it, and they know they have it.
Right.
And there's something that you said earlier about sacred. Sex is sacred.
Yes.
But why sex is in everything? You're riding down the vehicle, the advertising, the girl in the two-piece and the guy, all the buff and all of that, 6-pack, 10-pack, 10 keg, whatever, 1-pack. I mean, sex is in everything, and this beside let me not say beside, but there are persons that using the selfies and they're doing all these sex videos and look at me and this soft porn, hard porn, no porn, it's all porn. But they doing these things for what? Attention. They're doing these things for, and then somewhere along the line you will get yourself involved with somebody.
Well, you know what's interesting for me in my journey of living with the HIV and my lived experience, majority of the people that I've met that have an HIV diagnosis were in committed relationships, or what they perceived or thought was a committed relationship. It wasn't the
So you mean to tell me they were knuckling each other? Okay, sorry, knuckle me. Wait, Antigua term knuckle me in American you say having an affair.
Knuckle me. So okay,
having an affair, but we say knuckle.
Or the person didn't know their status before they got into the relationship. You know, they were unaware because they never got tested beforehand. You know, I've heard a lot of you know, there are people who were born positive, you know, didn't know that they had it. So I've heard a lot of different stories, but it has been very rare that I've heard. I have a handful, but that I've heard. Oh, I was definitely out there, Masonia. I had like a lot of partners. I have some stories like that, but majority of the stories that I have, I was married. I was dating for this one person for a long time. I only had 2 people that I was dealing with. It wasn't that they were being promiscuous. It is just so heavily in our community that even though you have all these other things that accentuate and promote sex to sell, it is really in our more intimate relationships that we think are very sacred, that we're not choosing to make HIV the height of it, where we can say that this is the one thing we're going to be firm about, that we're not going to give each other an STD or STI. We're going to make sure that we don't do that to each other. And even if I decide to, you know, knock a me or decide to have an affair, I'm not going to give the other person anything either. I'm going to make sure I do whatever it takes to protect whomever I'm with. So if you're practicing polyamory or if you're practicing monogamy, it doesn't, for me, in the way that I see it, because I can't change how you maneuver in your life and your lifestyle and your livelihood. I can only say that if you're doing, no matter what you're doing, do whatever it takes to protect yourself so that you can protect others.
Yeah.
And make sure that you have enough compassion within you to protect the next person. It is important. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
I feel like this is something that we should not have to face as a community.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's impacting our community to the point where nothing should attack or threaten. Nothing should threaten reproduction in our community. That's how I see it.
Right.
The act to procreate,
Yeah.
what our parents did to bring us into this world, nothing should threaten that. And so one of the things that is threatening that is HIV and AIDS and other STIs and STDs. So what do we do as a community to change that? And it's not just about using a condom. A condom helps, but what about the mindset and our values around how we approach sex and other human beings?
Yeah.
You know, if you are a sex worker or what some people may call a prostitute, I call a sex worker. If you are a sex worker, what are you doing to make sure you don't get it from somebody else and that you protect yourself so you don't pass it on to somebody else?
Yeah.
You live your life. I'm not judging what you're doing, but what are you doing to make sure you protect the next person? Okay, you're a person of the LGBTQ community, right? What are you doing to protect yourself and the next person? You're using sex toys in your sacred moment of participating and having physical intimacy. What are you doing to make sure you don't transfer these bodily fluids to impact each other? How much do you really care about the next person?
Right.
How much do you truly care about yourself? To not pass this on.
Which means that a lot of couples need to have to always be doing testing.
We all have to be in this together because I think that once we all really hone in on the HIV/AIDS epidemic, I think that it will impact us in other areas of our culture. As a Black community, I really do think it will impact us in so many levels if we even just start with HIV and AIDS. I just know that it will, because with HIV you have to deal with holistic approaches. You have to deal with compassion. You have to deal with love. You have to deal with anger and forgiveness. It's a holistic approach. Health, eating, physical, spiritual, mental, emotional. You have to deal with all of that. So if you deal with that, you learn to master it in one area of your life, it will trickle down in others. So I think that this would, if people would take time to really hone in on HIV and AIDS and what it should not be, then we can move forward in so many other areas in our community. It intersects with other things.
Wow. Something is coming across my mind. The nation of Antigua and Barbuda in a whole, the AIDS rate is pretty much low, which is good, which is great, which is wonderful. So that's the most I can answer it in that way, in simplicity. In simplicity.
I wonder what could Atlanta learn from you all?
Oh, a lot.
Because ours is the opposite.
Yeah, because I read that. Sorry about that, Allison. Yeah, I was in response is that Atlanta. I read that on your on the link that I read the recent AIDS walk that was here in Atlanta. That out of the 50 states, 50 states, Atlanta is actually the highest.
Yes. For
city. City. Explain that, because everybody's like, oh, I'm moving to Atlanta. Hotlanta. But then when I read that, yeah, right. So then when I read that Atlanta is the highest, it's like, what happened? Everybody open up the front and then back open. I mean, so quick. I mean, like that. Sorry, I might be wrong. Listen, I'm sorry, I had to drop it like that. But to me, that is how I kind of read it. Like, everybody open up the front and the back door quick. So that is why the rate is so high in the States. I mean, in Atlanta. The DL.
That are on the down low, who are having relationships on both sides, spinning yarns, tales, and delivering information to the people they want to hear. They run down the road, and then the next thing you know, bam. So, you know, maybe Atlanta's the community of love.
Yeah, I would definitely say that, but I also think that by it being a growing city, I think that is part of what comes with it. And I don't think it's just the people that live here that have it. I think that people are moving from other places that have it. We have a very strong LGBTQ community, especially amongst the men here in Atlanta, and that is a part of the race. And I do think it does have a lot to do with people not keeping sex sacred. They are opening their front and back door probably. I do think, but also I believe that more people are getting tested than before. So in order to know the rates of what's happening, more people have to be getting tested. So I think it's an interesting thing and narrative to be able to portray around those who are living with it, but also, and more or less, those who are still passing away from complications of AIDS. That is more so like my issue, is that at this day and age, you still have people who are still getting sick and passing away, when we now have something where not only medications, but just living an overall healthy lifestyle, you can get to what you call an undetectable viral load, which means it's untransmittable, but it also means that your life expectancy is the same of someone who doesn't have HIV.
Should an HIV positive person have unprotected sex with another HIV positive person? Please explain that, because there is a nasty myth that, okay, you positive, I positive, we can all have unprotected sex. But if I understand correctly, that your level, my level, the tolerance is something that can explode in somebody's body. Explain that for me, please.
That's an interesting way to say it.
Yeah.
Well, two persons who are HIV positive or living with HIV or AIDS, they can be in a relationship together, yes. Any person that's having sex unprotected, you should still be aware of what a person's STD panel may be. Meaning, like, at least have their most recent test results, understand where they are, so that you both have a respectable understanding about each other's health. You know, I think that from my understanding, if two people who have HIV or AIDS, if they're not at an undetectable viral load, they need to be very mindful that they can create a stronger strain of the virus if they're having unprotected sex, which can make you become very resistant to over 40 different types of medications to treat HIV and AIDS, which means that it'd be harder to manage the virus.
40?
There's over 40 medications. Well, I think there's 47 medications to treat HIV, give or take. The ones that's getting ready to come out. Yeah. So you can class out of all of those medications and not be able to take any of them because you built resistance to them. So that makes it harder to treat the virus if you can't take any medications at all, you know. But two persons with an HIV diagnosis, they still can have unprotected sex if they want to. Anybody can have unprotected sex if that's your choice. But the part that may be something of concern is that you can create a stronger strand of the virus that makes it harder to treat. Oftentimes people think that if you have HIV that you should not have sex anymore. We're still human beings. We deserve sex. We deserve to still have sex. Why should we stop? You know, for some people that's not the only way that they got it, you know, but we still deserve to have sex. We still deserve physical intimacy.
Yeah.
You know, we still deserve that. So for me, I think that a person who, you can have people who are what you call a serodiscordant couple, where a person is HIV positive and the other person is HIV negative, and they have unprotected sex. But when you're at an undetectable viral load, it's kind of, I don't really like to promote it because I think that people can take it as, oh, I can have plenty of unprotected sex now. No, when you're at an undetectable viral load, you cannot transmit the virus. Undetectable equals untransmittable, or what the campaign is called, U equals U. So basically you do what you need to do for yourself so you don't pass it on to the next person, like I've been saying from the beginning.
Yeah.
However, a person living with HIV or not, you should still be using condoms because there are other sexually transmitted infections and diseases that you can get. And if you are in a committed relationship, I would highly suggest that you get tested regularly, at least once a year. To you renew your vows every 5 years when you get married. You celebrate your anniversary once a year, you know, from being with a person that you're in a relationship with. Why not commit to getting tested at least once a year as well, to recommit and show that, hey, we're still in this together. I believe in protecting your health and mine as well.
Right.
You know, you do it for that reason. So that's what I mean by cultural values and cultural shift. That you're taking accountability to be responsible about your physical body and health, the things that's going on the inside. Because looking at me from the outside, you don't know that I have a piece of metal in my heart. You looking at me from the outside, you don't know that I'm taking medications to suppress the HIV virus.
Yeah.
But because I understand it and I value my body, I love myself, I want to take care and do whatever I need to do on the inside to make sure that I don't impact someone else on their inside.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you see a full cure being developed for AIDS or HIV in your lifetime?
No. Sadly. Maybe in my kids or my grandkids' lifetime, yes. But on the political side of things and just understand the way that capitalism is, I feel that someone is competing for the Nobel Peace Prize. I feel that there's so much money to be made off of HIV and AIDS, millions and billions of dollars, that the fight for the cure and the Nobel Peace Prize supersedes the cure. I find the silver lining in everything that happens in my life. I search for the silver lining in everything that happens in my life, whether it's good or bad. I look for the silver lining in especially every negative. And then the second thing is I've established love beyond measure within myself.
What do you hope to achieve in the next 5 years?
Wow. In the next 5 years, I hope to achieve the will of God, what God asked me to do. So completing my nonprofit organization where it will help women and youth around HIV and AIDS to have them more voices heightened around the epidemic, lower rates of HIV, celebrating community more and our accomplishments around the HIV virus. I would like to just have and show people how to have more compassion towards themselves with whatever they're doing in life, and how to be courageous and remain positive and motivating no matter what comes their way, to be strong, and empowering. So within the next 5 years, I see myself married, my son graduating high school and going to college. I see myself still traveling the world.
That's absolutely beautiful. You know, I am going to ask the other question. Where do you get your passion from? That's my last final question.
Where do you get your passion from?
The love of God. I think my passion comes from the love of God. The God that I serve, which is love, I believe I get my passion from that, in which the God I serve.
Thank you all for watching us. We hope that you have learned a lot. I mean, we may not have touched a lot of things, but we did our best in how raw we were about everything, in some way, some shape, and some form, everything. But do your part. You get tested, but most importantly, it's about prevention as well. Prevent. You can prevent yourself from getting HIV/AIDS.
And if you have HIV,
you can still live longer. You can still access all of your medications and everything.
And opportunity to protect somebody else.
And you have the opportunity to protect someone else. And also, if you don't want to have nervous breakdown all the time, have your great inner circle that you can depend on. Masonia had that. She had an inner circle to help her.
I had to create it. I had to create my circle of support.
Yep. Because it's not everybody is for you.
Right.
All right? So be strong, be good. Blessings to you. Atlanta, I hope the next time I read, I really hope the next time when I read the status that I'm seeing that it has gone down drastically. I really hope that is, that happened. But I want to say to Antigua and Barbuda, you have been doing an excellent job. Really and truly, you've been doing a wonderful job where it's very, very low. And keep doing the good work that you have been doing. Really keep up the good work. And hey, live life, live free, be good, be you. Prevent yourself. Prevention, respect yourself, refuse to be another statistic.
Yes.
God bless you. God bless you. God bless you.